Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is Monday, April the 27th, 2020, and we are going to discuss a few things with you today as Arynn came up with a really good idea. Would you like to elaborate to everybody what you came up with?
So we have all these discussions over oil and gas. I mean, we're a company in the oil and gas industry. And Andy and I were talking, and he's like, we should start something like, he said the energy hour with Andy and Arynn. But I twisted it into the energy hour with the A team because that's what we've always referred to it as, because Andy and Arynn. So basically what we're gonna do is each week we're gonna come to you with a video where we've discussed various things that are happening within the industry. If there's anything that you would like to hear us discuss, you're welcome to give recommendations. Today we're gonna start with just understanding oil and natural gas prices, and the impact that supply and demand and even paper trading can have on that.
So yeah, my name is Andrew Gautreaux. This is Arynn Johnson, and she's going to discuss with you natural gas prices and how they're affected, and then I'm going to discuss how oil is impacted and some strategies that we have come up with to hopefully facilitate optimal production at the highest price possible so that our partners make more money. So do you want to get us started with the natural gas?
Yeah, so I was reading an article on the Oil and Gas Journal that was discussing natural gas. And, it stated that over the last 5 years, our average of natural gas and storage is actually up this year by 19%. And, the dates that they used for that actually, it ended on March 31st. So if you think about when the whole pandemic started, that's only like 2 weeks that would technically be influenced by COVID. So it is of my personal opinion that the amount of natural gas that we do have stored doesn't really have much to do with the pandemic at hand and more to do with just supply and demand. So the average price right now is
$1.84.
Yeah, for natural gas. And over the last 5 years, there's only one 4-month time span where it got above $3 at all. So just demand in general has been down quite a bit. And our company, we take the natural gas that we have and it's kind of like outsourced in a smaller geographical location, whereas oil, you'll see it over a larger, like you mentioned, somewhere where oil can end up in China. With natural gas, it's going to be within the area. So that leads us to believe that the demand's just not as big because it's just not being used as much. And if you think about the last winter and the fact that the temperatures didn't get quite as low, people weren't needing as much natural gas.
Yeah, no, that's true. We didn't have any. I don't recall getting any snow this year.
We didn't.
Which it's not like it snows a whole lot here anyway. But yeah, I mean, Arynn's right. Natural gas is geographically limited with regard to where it's used, and it's used to heat a lot of our homes here in Texas. And so, the natural gas that we produce on our wells are basically sent to a sales line, and it's used locally, and it may go as far out as the neighboring states, but that's pretty much it. And so it's no surprise that our nat gas prices are where they are right now. But what was interesting to me is that whereas with oil you have some solutions and some things that you can do to hedge, with natural gas it's been really hard to do that because, like Arynn said, there was only one period of time over a 4-month period where it was over $3, and so there's not a whole lot to hedge with natural gas, which, by the way, I think of our revenue, natural gas is only about 20% of our overall revenue that we get with the oil and gas we produce, which leads me to oil. So something that's really interesting to me, folks, really fascinating, that the world produces about 98 to 100 million barrels of oil per day. We also use about 98 to 100 million barrels of oil per day, or we did before COVID-19. And OPEC and their alliances have agreed to reduce our output, or their output, as Texas is not an OPEC part of their alliance, but OPEC agreed to have a cut by 9.7 million barrels of oil per day from May through June. That's going to create a big impact. They also agreed to cut outputs by 7.7 million barrels from July until December of this year, and from January of 2021 until April of 2022, they agreed to cut production by 5.8 million barrels. That's huge, folks. And with all of the jobs that were lost in the oil field, and with all of the ramp up time that's going to take to get oil production back to pre-COVID-19 levels, I think we're in for a really big hike in oil prices. It's hard to say when, because that has a lot to do with when these economies are going to turn back around, but it will absolutely affect the overall outcome of oil and natural gas prices. We talked about this in our office last week about how the price of oil can go negative. Well, that has nothing to do with supply and demand, because that would be impossible. That has to do with paper trading, and there were a lot of people that were unloading their May contracts all at one time. And when all of those entries were being made into the system, you had a glut of these contracts that were being sold out. And so for a quick moment there, we saw negative oil prices. And then those guys flipped those contracts to the June contract. So that's the reason for that. Arynn, do you want to talk about what our solution is for our oil production?
So we are storing our oil. We chose to buy storage tanks rather than selling at a lower price. And when the prices go back up, we're going to start selling again. It's a little bit different with natural gas. So basically anything that we produce is just straight out sold.
So since Arynn's our natural gas expert, but she also does a lot of the buying for our equipment in the oil field, that's why I have to defer to her on some of these things. But I do know that we bought several frac tanks, and so that we wouldn't have any interruption in our production. We did that so that we could store our oil, and then we'll sell it as oil prices go up. But a lot of the really big companies, and this is where it's kind of advantageous to be smaller like we are, is that a lot of the bigger oil companies, they don't have nearly the storage capacity to be, a big frac tank is able to store 500 barrels of oil. And a frac tank looks similar to a container on a train that you would see. Well, when ExxonMobil is producing hundreds of thousands of barrels of oil, you can't put that many frac tanks in a specific area. And so, especially with cattle farmers and people that are hunting and things like that, whereas our wells are more modest producers, we can store that oil. We have the ability to sell it later without having an interruption in our production. Today, oil prices are $13.10 a barrel, and I think you guys know me well enough to know that I am not an advocate of selling our oil at $13.10. But I will say that, believe it or not, our lift cost is lower than that because we're very lean. But even though we can make money at $13 a barrel, it's not a lot, it's insignificant, and that's the reason for storing our oil and selling it later. And again, we won't have any interruption in production. But for the time being, I want you partners to know that we will not have checks per se, except on the natural gas side, on Arynn's side. That's why everybody likes Arynn better, because she's always selling natural gas, but the oil side is a little bit tougher right now. So you'll see that combined in your statements with the natural gas that we're selling as we start selling the oil when oil prices come up. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. This is our first of many.
It's our first. So any tips, recommendations, anything you want to hear, we're definitely open to it. We're here to provide you guys with all the information that you could ever want, need.
Yeah, so subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, give us a thumbs down if you don't like it. Preferably thumbs up.
Criticism is taken, yes, but let's be nice, kind words.
Yeah, that would help, because we are receptive to hearing what you have to say. And obviously, if you'll subscribe to our channel and give us any recommendations, we will be happy to take those and hopefully talk about the next thing that you want us to talk about on our next video, which we'll shoot in a week or two.
Yeah, we're going to try and do these weekly. So
have a great day, folks.